Welcome back. Today we're talking about ancestral healing. If you know me, you know this is one of my favorite topics, of which there are many, but this is one of the top of the list. Ancestral healing. This is truly, I believe, why we are here at this time in this incarnation on this planet. We are here to heal ancestral baggage and garbage that has come forward in our DNA from our past incarnations with our ancestors or as our ancestors. We carry a little piece of their DNA through time, decades, centuries, millennia. So there is a tiny piece of your DNA that is watered down, but it still exists within you from your great, 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 great 10, 15, 20 times past, back even millennia, depending how many times you have incarnated on Earth through a familial line ancestrally. Your line could be thousands of years old. And in a lot of cases, we are. But that watered down version still sits within your DNA. And so within that cellular level information, DNA information, sit experiences, your ancestral experiences of that great 10 or 20 times back grandparent who had a very unfortunate existence on planet Earth as a human. Our history we know, but the atrocities of our history are often kept silent, kept hidden. But you can imagine that if you have been here many, 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 many times with the DNA you hold within you as your great, great, great grandparent, as your great parent, great grandparent, as your 10 times, 15 times, 20, 30 times removed grandparent, you still hold that cellular memory of their existence. If they were tortured, if they were suppressed, if they were killed, and a lot of times people were, it was not a nice existence back in the Middle Ages and prior to that, with all of the stuff that happened in human history back around date zero, AD BC, right at zero. And around that time, prior to that, there are a lot of wars through our history all over the planet. And chances are you hold some of that DNA. Why is this so important? Because a lot of the stuff we are experiencing in our human is being held in our DNA. We are repeating patterns and cycles of our ancestors, and things are bubbling up now. And we have this awareness in our human existence and our spiritual existence, because that is growing in this incarnation. We have all chosen to be here at this time on this planet in whatever human experience we have chosen, the body you have chosen, the existence you have chosen is here for a purpose. And a lot of people, and I know people who are finding this channel, are in some sort of spiritual expansion or spiritual awakening, which is a fantastic thing, because that is what humanity needs to go through. Once we expand into our spiritual being, we move out of this human existence that we are experiencing, and we move into higher knowledge, knowing that in our DNA, there are experiences, there are traumas, there is information that we are repeating the pattern and cycle of in this lifetime, perhaps unknowingly. However, it is starting to create awareness in us that, this doesn't work for me anymore. And that is our purpose here now, to have those things percolate and have them disrupt our lives, have them bubble up, and have that awareness created in our human existence now at this time on this planet, that we are able to move into a healing mode. Healing stuff that we have brought forward into this lifetime from our past, from our ancestors, from our great 25-time removed grandparent who was killed for their beliefs, who was suppressed, who was tortured, who whatever happened to them is sitting in a little bit of our DNA. And that is what's percolating up. There are a lot of commonalities in the things that are percolating and need healing. One of the things I see a lot of is control, either controlling or being controlled. This is coming up because especially women and people who were outside the norm historically have been suppressed, have been controlled, have been killed, have been tortured for believing something other than the quote unquote norm. So this comes through if that, and it's likely it has happened in the centuries or millennia that your ancestors have lived before you, coming through to you now. So being in a controlling relationship, being controlling, wanting control, those are all sort of the pinpoints that are coming to you so that you can shed light on it and become aware. You can't make any changes. You can't heal unless you have an awareness of what you need to heal. Number one. Number two, once you understand, I love control. I have a grandparent who loves control. I have an aunt who loves control. I know my great grandparent. This is showing you the patterns and cycles that are repeating ancestrally. If it's not just you, if you can see it back in your ancestral line, that is a huge cue and clue that there is something that you are being made aware of that is yours to heal. That is why we are here. Another common one is fear. Fear, anxiety, those judgment, they all sort of wrap together. If you're fearful or anxious, you're feeling judged. Also guilt, and those sort of related shame. Shame is a big one as well. Fear is a huge one. If you have a past incarnation in your ancestral line as a female, which we all do, there is going to be some sort of suppressed fear in some way, shape, or form, because women were not allowed to speak their voice, not allowed to be autonomous, not allowed to own their own self or things, not allowed to have a voice in terms of government, no voting until fairly recently in the last 100-ish years. This is a huge one, especially if you are a woman in this incarnation that is coming up. Fear of success, fear of failure, fear of speaking your truth and not being heard the way you want to be heard. That's the judgment piece that comes in. The shame of speaking your truth and maybe I'm going to be wrong, because in the past you were deemed incorrect if you did not conform. See where this is going? So all of these things are bubbling up, percolating, disrupting us so that we think about it. The thing is, this is in our DNA. It's in our pain points, whether that's emotional or physical. A huge telltale is physical pain. It elicits a lot of information to an energy healer. And once you can pinpoint that pain, you can heal energetically that ancestral baggage, trauma that has come through to this lifetime. I'll give you an example. A couple of years ago, I left my marriage, a very long-term marriage, and I moved out on my own, and I was moving into my own business, my own existence, and creating this life without a husband, without a provider, without a partner. And while I was going through all of the healing, and I was doing a lot of healing around leaving my marriage and being on my own and cutting ties and all of the guilt. What have I done to my family? All of that stuff bubbled up, and I was healing it. And in the midst of this, I a few times had literally felt like fingers digging into my left kidney at the back. Your kidneys are under your rib cage. And it felt like there were fingers digging in very deeply and very painfully for about 2-3 months. Kidneys are fear. It's where we hold our fear. And left side is the feminine side. So this happened a few times, and I was working with a couple of my associates and my mentor, who are spiritual healers and energetic healers. And I kept talking about this pain in my left kidney. And it bubbled up over and over, and we'd talk about certain things, being autonomous, being sovereign, being on my own, working my business so that it would grow and flourish, and I would be a solopreneur and an entrepreneur and be building this on my own. And it kept bubbling up. And what it ended up being, I found out after much asking, and I am intuitive, so it did come to me that way with the help of my mentors, that it was my ancestors, my female ancestors, who were essentially telling me, by giving me pain in my kidney that I could not ignore, how dare you think of going out and being on your own? That's scary. Don't do that. You need a man. How could you leave your marriage? That's not safe. And it was all of their fear coming through me in the form of this physical pain, but I also had emotional pain that was going through it. In that case, it was mostly physical, but there was other stuff bubbling up emotionally, because your activations, your triggers, I prefer the word activations, for this come up in a physical or an emotional sense. So there is a feeling associated with it or a physical pain associated with it. In this case, it was the physical pain on my left side, specifically in my kidney, which is related to fear, that my ancestors are showing me, don't do this. This is scary. You can't do this. And at that point, I was very determined, and I turned around and point blank said to them, you don't get to do this anymore. This is my life. This is not your life. And I choose to heal this now. And I peeled back that onion, because it's not just one layer, and it went deep and deep and deep. That's why it was with me for about 3 months as I was healing different layers of this fear of going out on my own, fear of being alone. I was coming from a 20 plus year marriage and suddenly thrust into this world that I really was unfamiliar with, because I hadn't lived in it for so many years. Me, myself, and I, the three of us being on our own. So that was one example. There have been many, 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 many other examples. And I do a lot of this healing with my clients. There is always a cue, whether that is an emotional cue, whether that is something that has them stuck. That is another huge, huge, huge cue and clue that you are stuck in this cycle, this pattern, and you keep repeating it. It could be in relationships, it could be in business, it could be in your personal life, it could be in your thought patterns, it could be in your ability to literally move forward or not. Getting stuck in the doldrums because you're repeating this cycle that isn't even yours. You're repeating this pattern of thought, this pattern of being, this pattern of existence that isn't even yours. I was thinking the other day about those things that just are because that's the way it's always been done. Well, why do you put that there in your kitchen? I don't know. That's where my mom used to put it. That's where my grandma used to put it. So these things come with us to this lifetime. And we often have these cellular memories, this ingrained stuff that we don't even know why, how, or what we're doing. It just is because that is the pattern and cycle that has happened over so many years. That is the way it has always been done. That is what is expected of you. But really, is it? Is it because it's right? Or is it because that's how it's always been? And that's what is programmed into your DNA. There's a profound question for you to consider. Is it because it's right for you, or is it because somebody else says it is? Whether that's literally saying it to you or it's programmed in your DNA. The good thing about this is you can backtrack and unravel those things and heal them. The most amazing thing with my whole experience of the last couple of years, extricating myself from a marriage, is that these patterns and cycles that I see happening, that I have been unabashedly truthful to myself about and accepting of it, is that I am choosing to heal these patterns and cycles back however many generations they have been instilled in my DNA, in my existence. But it stops here. I'm breaking the cycle and pattern because I am choosing to, with the awareness that I have, the knowledge I have, the healing powers that I have, the will I have to stop the pattern. It stops the pattern back. It heals it back over many generations. It stops with me, but it also heals forward. So my children and their children and their children and their children will not have these patterns because I am removing it from my energetic body. It's energy in your DNA. It is energy in your cellular memory. And when we can take it out and transmute it and remove it and get rid of it for good, that is extraordinarily healing. But even better, it's so freeing. We free ourselves from these binds, these bonds, these bounds, bindings, bonds. I forget what I'm trying to say here. Bindings and bounds and constriction of what we have lived for so many, 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 many lifetimes through our ancestors. And now we're free. We have all of this space to create something new, to shift into something better without these restrictions, constrictions, and bindings that have been the norm for so many, many, many people before us, and also for so many, 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 many lifetimes and centuries and millennia before us. We're freeing them. We're freeing us. We are shifting the whole way of being. That is how it's always been. That is how it will always be, is no longer the norm, because we're breaking those cycles and patterns, which is the most important thing we can do in this lifetime. The expansiveness of this, the freedom of this, and the power of this is mind-boggling when you think about it. With all of the ancestral garbage, baggage, weight, it literally felt like a weight weighing me down. It felt like I had this huge anchor, as if I were a giant sailing ship with this massive lead-weighted anchor attached to me. Once I healed these different layers of this ancestral garbage that they had put on me by no fault of their own, they couldn't help it. Once I freed myself from these things by peeling back these layers of the onion, it released so much weight, so much stuff that I did not need to carry any longer. It's incredibly freeing knowing that you have the power to shift energy that way, to release energetic globs of weight that are in your energetic field, that are in your energetic body, to shift the DNA patterning, to shift the DNA coding so that it no longer resides in the way that it has, weighing down people for so many generations. And when you go through and your 10 times great grandparent had XYZ weighing them down, and then it went to your 9 times great grandparent, they put something else on it, had their own experiences, and then forward again with the last 2 generations. You see where I'm going with this? Last 2 generations on the 8 times great grandparent having their own experiences, 10, 9, 8 funneling to 7, and then 7 having their own experiences. Well, imagine what happens when that's all compounded on you in these tiny little fragments from all of these existences into your DNA, and you have your own experience in that same pattern or cycle. How incredibly powerful that is in what is created by you in that patterning in a negative way, when you're not aware that this is a pattern or cycle. It is compounded, it is more weighty when you have your own experience in this lifetime, reinforcing what has happened 10 generations, 20 generations, 25 generations, of which you have a little teeny tiny piece of each coming through to this lifetime. And then you have your own experience, and the weight of it is astronomical. This is why we are experiencing these things that are activating us to become aware of what all of that weight is on us that we are no longer okay carrying. We want to be free of it. This is why energetic healing and ancestral healing, and I'm talking in an energetic way, is so powerful. Because it's not ours to carry. It's not our burden to carry. It's the weight of the thoughts. It's the weight of the DNA. It's the weight of the consciousness, because it's not just you. It's everybody else around you who's had those experiences as well. So it's through your DNA, but it's also reinforced by everybody else who is in their blinder path with their own experiential DNA, who is walking beside you with the exact same experiences in their own history, in their own ancestral experience, that is reinforcing that for you. But if you can break it, it's going to affect people around you. Because when you heal back, this is the beauty of it. When you heal back energetically, you are at the bottom and it fans out, if you go 10 generations back, to all of your aunts and uncles and cousins and great grandparents over 10 times. You have, I didn't do the math before, however many great grandparents, and everybody filtered down receives that healing. So if you have a cousin who's going through the same thing, or a 10 times removed cousin, they are going to feel the effects of your healing. That is how powerful this is. As I said, this is one of my favorite topics. Ancestral healing. It is removing the patterns and cycles that are no longer serving us or you or your family in this lifetime. And moving forward, it doesn't work for you anymore. As I said, control is one of the big ones. And the fear, not having a voice, not being able to speak your truth. It is being 100% honest and going in and being truthful with yourself. Nobody else is going to hear what that is, but it is really scary telling yourself the truth. We avoid it. Now is the time to not avoid it. Now is the time to hear that. What are the patterns that your true self is saying, no more of that. We are done. When you go in and you listen, you will hear. And it's not attacking everyone and obliterating them all at once. It is going into one pattern or cycle, which chances are have a few offshoots that are related. But if you get to the heart of it, as in the control or the fear, and you heal that one specific thing, it is going to have a lot of repercussions on a whole bunch of other things that are going to move you forward in a positive way, on the right path, on the path that you are meant to be on while you are here in this incarnation, at this time, in this moment, in this life, as your human experience. When you embrace that truth within yourself, there is so much enlightenment. There's a weight lifted because you know then what you have to do. So I encourage you to keep an open mind. I invite you to look at the patterns that are repeated through your ancestral lines, perhaps a cousin or an aunt or a sibling or a great aunt or a grandparent, however much information you have about your ancestral line. Look at the patterns that of behavior specifically. Look at the patterns of emotions. Look at the patterns of pain. Does everybody have back pain? Does everybody have knee pain? Has everybody had something with their throat, suppressing their voice? They're all clues as to what needs to be healed. As always, I love talking about these topics. If you have any interest whatsoever, please reach out to me on my website and let me know if you have any questions, please, because I am more than happy to assist anybody on this journey. It is one that we must all take eventually. The sooner you can get there, the better you will be. I'll see you next time.